when we rise from the grave, God will make this a new heaven and a new earth. We don't have to go anywhere. Tom Wright goes on, or I know that this runs kind of counter to what most people think and believe. But what we have to understand is that this whole idea, this whole concept of going somewhere is really part of Greek thought that was developed by the philosopher Plato. Christians just kind of took it in, kind of adopted it because it seemed to go in sync with what Plato said. And it's very common in our society. Recently, or a few years ago, there was a book published by Marie Shriver. You may know her. She's the First Lady of California, married to Arnold Schwarzenegger. She's the daughter of Eunice Shriver, who died a couple of years ago, and the niece of President John F. Kennedy, former President John F. Kennedy. She wrote a book entitled, What's Heaven? And in that book, Wright says she presents a reality of heaven that, once again, you can't find anywhere in Scripture. She says that heaven is somewhere you believe in. Heaven is a beautiful place where you sit on soft clouds. Heaven is a night. In heaven, at night, you can sit beside the brightest stars anywhere in the universe. When your life is finished on earth, Shriver writes, God sends angels down to take you up to be with him. That all sounds warm and fuzzy and nice. But I really believe that it's dangerous. It's dangerous, especially that last line. To tell a small child that God will pick a time in which he'll send angels down to bring a person home is really tough. You take a small child who has lost their father or their mother, and you try to tell them that God sent his angels to take their father or their mother home. I've seen over and over again young children develop a real bitterness towards God. Why did God have to do it? That offers no better explanation than any other explanation. My opinion, it's worse, because it still puts the responsibility on God and makes God the culprit, but also, once again, it's not connected with anything in Scripture. But Wright goes on to write about the Reverend Dr. Jeremy Smoothtongue. Now, the Reverend Dr. Jeremy Smoothtongue is a lot different. He's a little bit more sophisticated. He's a little bit more intellectual. He doesn't want to get into all of the fundamentalist ideas. He likes the basic story, but he wants to take a different approach. Well, Dr. Smoothtongue, being a good pastor of First Church of the mainline denomination, is up on Saturday night waiting for midnight to come so that he can break his fast with a nice bottle of champagne. I mean, if you're going to break this fast, let's do it right. He also wants to go over his sermon, just to make sure that he has it all smooth, he has it all polished. Well, after a few glasses of bubbly, Dr. Jeremy is in full flow. He's going to take a different approach than the quaint but nice fundamentalist preacher down the road. He wants to make sure that his congregation can actually accept his message. I mean, his congregation is way too sophisticated to believe that miracles can happen. His congregation is way too sophisticated to believe that the dead can rise, that life can be breathed into dead. After all, as a famous person once said on a very good TV show, dead is dead. You don't know what I'm talking about, you're missing the best TV show, the best show on TV. The point is that Dr. Jeremy doesn't understand why God would rescue Jesus from death and ignore the millions of people who died in the Holocaust, the millions of innocent victims who suffered under the Pol Pot regime in the killing fields of Cambodia. Why would God do something for one Jewish person in Israel at one ancient time and ignore the millions who suffer in Darfur? An empty tomb, a bodily resurrection for Dr. J is an assault on the intelligence of himself and his people. Also, if such an event actually happened, it would lend credence to the idea that Christianity is superior to any other religion. And Dr. Jeremy can't believe that God, being all-loving and all-caring, would be exclusive. Dr. Jeremy understands his God to be all-inclusive. So Dr. Jeremy has put together a message, and he wants to make sure his congregation knows that these stories, that these eyewitness accounts didn't really happen. They were created much later. So he'll make sure he tells the congregation that they are a remythologization of the primal eschatological drama which caught up the disciples in a moment of sociomorphic empathy with the apocalyptic denouement of something, of the beatific vision. I have actually read all of those words at one point or another in some theologian who's trying to explain the resurrection. Dr. Smoothtongue's congregation will understand it as much as you and I did just now.